I am a compliance manager at a local water utility. And recently, we had a significant leadership challenge during an overnight shift incident involving one of our operators, John. So, at a water utility, operators are responsible for running the water treatment process, ensuring water chemistry is within regulated limits, managing tank levels, and collecting samples every 4 hours. During one of John's night shifts, so the shifts are usually like 12 hours long, so there's a day shift and then there's a night shift. During one of John's night shifts, he experienced a period of disorientation or unconsciousness. We're not exactly sure what happened. During this time, there were a couple of tanks that were overflowing and pumps that were operating at high speed regardless. This posed a safety risk not only to our system, but potentially to the community we serve. So the options and issues that we could have had. So Jason, the supervisor of John, he woke up at 5:30 in the morning and he took a look at the plant using his phone, and he saw that something was happening, and so he called John and asked him what was going on, and then he told John that he was going to take control of the plant to put it back into a safe condition. So some of the options that we faced was to initiate an immediate disciplinary process. So one of the options that we could have gone through was to have the operator drug tested, or we could have paused operations of the plant, but that's not necessarily something that we could have done, especially since it was so close to turnover of the night and day shifts. So we just had Sally come in a little bit early. And we could have also involved HR and medical professionals to evaluate whether this was a health-related incident beyond John's control. We could have reassigned John from safety-sensitive duties pending medical clearance. And we could have just ignored the incident and not taken any action whatsoever. So the core issues was the safety of our system, our water system, and our employees' well-being, and also ensuring compliance. So some of the ethical and or stakeholder considerations is public safety. We have to make sure that the water supply remains clean and safe. We also need to make sure that our employees' health are good. So protecting the dignity and rights of John, who may have had medical emergencies such as a seizure. Legal and regulatory compliance, we are bound by the Tennessee Department of Environmental Conservatory, and we are required to meet specific health codes. We also need to have trust and morals in the water utility business, because people trust us. We provide clean water. So we need people to trust that we are still providing clean water, and that goes along with reputation of the utility. So with the problem, the issue was immediately resolved by Jason, the supervisor, who took immediate control of the plant and was able to place it in a safe condition. Once on site, Jason spoke to John and Sally, who was there early. And Sally expressed the concern that John may have had a seizure during his shift. Sally recognized that John was not acting normal, and she was concerned. So what we did was Jason sent John home after he had a conversation with him. He had determined that he was safe to drive, and he was able to make it home. Jason recognized the seriousness of the situation and highly recommend that John goes to the doctor and make sure that he's healthy. And Jason at that time started to report the incident up, and that's whenever I started getting involved. So as the compliance manager of our water utility, I scheduled an immediate internal review, and we decided to temporarily remove John from night shift duties, and we were able to sub in a few supervisors to perform operations during the night to cover John's shift. We also ensured that John had clearance to start working again before he came back to work as an operator. We involved the HR and our safety officer to make sure that everybody was aware of what happened. Nothing, we still were in compliance. We were still able to provide safe water. We just overflowed a few tanks, and we were able to talk to the team and make sure that, you know, people are looking out for each other, which is exactly what Sally did. And we ultimately recognized Sally for stepping up and, you know, taking the initiative to say to Jason, like, hey, I don't think this guy's okay. And that was great. So the reaction of various parties, John obviously was confused and very concerned. He ultimately appreciated the response, and he appreciated that he got some time off to, you know, take care of his health. Jason felt supported, and he felt valued for his quick actions and leadership. I definitely think Jason had some lessons learned, maybe not to send John home, and maybe I think Jason should have maybe driven John home, or maybe even called John's wife to have him come pick, or have her come pick up John. But, you know, that's part of the lessons learned. Sally was reassured that her input was valued, and that the supervisors take her stance on things seriously. And the management team, especially from this internal audit that we performed, we have decided to stop having people on rotating shifts. So there are people that like night shift, and there are people that don't want to change shifts. So what we do is what we were doing is having them rotate throughout the month. So they would have 4 days of nights and then 3 days of days, and, you know, it would go through a cycle. But now they're on set schedules. So the operators, they're either day shift operators or they're night shift operators, and that ultimately is leading to a more work-life balance that they definitely appreciate. So some of the lessons learned from this obviously was maybe not letting John drive home. That was a big one. And having and understanding how health impacts can, you know, what they can do to operators. We have been taking a look at, you know, the operators are the only people on site during nighttime operations. So we've been taking a look at seeing if we can get somebody else to come in with the operators and have maybe like a maintenance team. But that's in the works. That's not something that we can do overnight. But definitely having a single person in charge of the community's water might not be the best idea. So we're definitely taking a look at that. And then the clear communication, some of the lessons learned going back to that is clear communication and protocols. We didn't really have a protocol for, you know, if we have an operator with a medical emergency at 3 a.m. So we're definitely going to start taking that seriously, and we are in the process of creating protocols and standard operating procedures. And then proactively with that risk management, again, we're trying to get another person on night shift so that the operator isn't operating by him or herself throughout the night. And we're going to review and updating the shift schedules, and we're also going to update our fatigue protocols and remote monitoring. So some of the advice that I have for aspiring leaders is always lead with empathy. Jumping to the worst case solution is not a good idea, and ultimately it was a health issue. I'm not exactly sure if he actually had a seizure, but he has been returned to work and he's able, but we are keeping him on day shift. And also, this decision-making process was all in the gray. It's not black or white. And one of the things that I really appreciated about Jason is, first of all, he checked his phone at 5:30 a.m. just to make sure that the plant was operating properly. And he didn't, I mean, this is a kind of a once-in-a-lifetime type of situation. And I really think Jason led with dignity and respect and empathy, and tried to do the right thing, which was, really great. And then another piece of advice that I have is empower and trust your team. Sally took over John's shift, and she did a great job afterwards. So that's all I got. That was my scenario. Thank you.